headlines. India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar has responded to criticism from the Western media of his recent visit to Moscow and meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin, describing India's relationship with Russia as important and steady. Jaishankar has asserted that the ties with Moscow have been beneficial for New Delhi. He also said that India needs to approach thoughtfully while dealing with other countries. In an interview to news agency ANI, Jaishankar said, "I have said this publicly in Moscow, even before my meeting with President Putin, that we value this relationship. It's a relationship that has served India well. It is a time-tested partnership." Remember, he met with the Russian president, the deputy prime minister and the foreign minister, amongst others. This was a high-profile visit that made global headlines, remember, with the Russia-Ukraine war still raging. The foreign minister in this interview to ANI also talked about India's strained ties with Pakistan and China and the prickly Khalistan issue that resulted in souring of ties between India and Canada recently. The foreign minister also commented on the grand success of the G20 summit in New Delhi, where Jaishankar said that India has been engaging with nations on mutual interests and many more global leaders now want to visit India.
No, look, if people can't read me, that means my mind games are working. Okay, but the answer is, honestly, I see no reason that people should take any what was happening other than at face value, because we have always maintained that the Russia relationship is a very important one, very steady one. I've written about it in my book, and I said it in Moscow. I mean, I said it publicly in Moscow. Even before my meeting with President Putin happened, which is that we value this relationship. It's a relationship that has served India well. Look, I'm looking at it now from an Indian perspective. You must look from the perspective of your interest, not allow other people to decide your judgment and your responses. Again, look, a country which has maximum friends and minimum adversaries is obviously one with a smart diplomacy. So, why would a country restrict its friends? Why would it say, I will choose you and not choose you, unless your interest compelled you to do that? I am today focusing on how do I expand my relationships, how am I more present, how am I more influential. So for me, the more friends I have, the more forums I am member of, the more places where I can influence, sway outcomes is good for me. They would say, if you are a democracy, you must do this, this, this. So if you should ask them, well, if that is so, please look at the mirror and tell me how you were behaving as a democracy. So everybody, after all, look, it's not like every country has its values and beliefs, but every country has its interests as well, and every country finds a balance. So when others come and tell you that you have no interest, that you must go by what has been decided elsewhere, that's when you lack that self-confidence to say, excuse me, I think I'm going to do something else because I've looked at it very carefully and my interests have taken me in a certain direction or asked me to take a certain position. Look, I do not see a correlation there. No? I mean, getting everybody around on a G20 has nothing to do with the Khalistani issue in Canada. I mean, the Khalistani issue is not a new issue. The Khalistani issue has existed for decades. It's not for me to speculate on other prime ministers, but I will tell you the issue at heart. The issue at heart is the fact that in Canadian politics, these Khalistani forces have been given a lot of space and have been allowed to indulge in activities which I think are damaging to the relationship, clearly not in India's interest, but I would argue not in Canada's interest either. If you look at the last 75 plus years of our foreign policy, we've had a strain of realism about China, and we have had a strain of, I can say, you can call it idealism, romanticism, non-realism, you can say. And it begins right from day one. I mean, where there is a very sharp difference of opinion how to respond to China between Nehru and Sardar Patel. So I would say the Modi government and has been very much more in conformity with the strain of realism which originated from Sardar Patel. I think today, what will happen with China? I mean, I argue for dealing with China from a basis of realism, which that strain of realism which I feel extends all the way from Sardar Patel to Narendra Modi. That is the strain of realism which I feel should allow us to have a certain approach. The alternative strain, which starts from Nehru's in a sense China first policy, because he says first let China take its seat, then we will see for India. I don't think, I don't believe it's a pivot we have taken. We have tried to construct a relationship which is based, as I say, on three mutuals. And the fact is that unless there is a mutuality of that mutuality is recognized, this relationship will find it very difficult to progress. And today part of our problem is exactly because in 2020 agreements were disregarded, and the mutuality on which this whole relationship is predicated has not been followed, that we have the situation we have. So when you ask me where would it go, I would say a lot of it would depend on what is the Chinese policy. What Pakistan was trying to do, not now but over multiple decades, was really to use cross-border terrorism to bring India to the table. Okay? That in essence was its core policy. We have made that irrelevant by not playing that game. Now it's not a case that we don't will not deal with a neighbor. After all, at the end of the day, a neighbor is a neighbor. But it is that we will not deal on the basis of terms that they set, where the practice of terrorism is deemed as legitimate and effective in order to bring you to the table.